As dinner is being served, we're going to ask Father Early to provide the invocation.
Well, first of all, it is a pleasure to be here tonight with Lieutenant Chris's retirement dinner. And when I was asked a few minutes ago to deliver the invocation, I said, well, what can I do? What prayer can I use? So, thank God, I watched Blue Blood last Friday night. And I saw the Reagans use this prayer. I'm not sure where they got it, but it seemed pretty appropriate for tonight. Bless us, O Lord, and these thy gifts which you're about to receive from thy bounty through Christ our Lord. Amen. Congratulations, Chris.
Thank you, Father Early. All right, everyone, enjoy your meal. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to the retirement dinner to honor Chris Neville. Once more time, out of a nice big round of applause for Chris. I can think of no better way to start this program than to ask Father Early to come back up to the podium. He has a presentation to make to Chris.
Ladies and gentlemen, before I give the presentation, could all the Catholics get away from the bar, please? No, before I do this presentation, I have to tell you that Chris came to me and was talking about what is he going to do with retirement, and he said he'd like to become a priest. I said, well, great, not bad. I said, but do you understand that you have to take the vow of celibacy? Not a problem, been living that for years. And then I said, well, we also have to take a vow of obedience. And he said, well, not a problem either. I'll just consider it Cardinal Sean's honeydew list. So he'll do that. But in light of his willingness to do all that for the church, His Holiness Benedict the 16th sent an apostolic blessing to him. And it reads as follows. His Holiness Pope Benedict the 16th, as a pledge of divine favor, bestows the apostolic blessing upon J. Christopher Neville on the occasion of his retirement from the Wilmington, Massachusetts Police Department, April 2nd, 2012, and signed by the Apostolic Nuncio in Washington, D.C. So, Chris, may God's blessings be with you all. Very much.
Thank you, Father Early. We forgot to ask him to keep it clean. All right, ladies and gentlemen, tonight we are celebrating the career of Detective Lieutenant Christopher Neville. Looking at the number of people that have shown up, it's a testament to how much he means to the department, to the town, to the surrounding law enforcement community, and in fact, it looks to me like just about every member of the Wilmington Police Force is here. So that begs one serious question: who the hell's watching Kevin McDonald tonight? I hope somebody's on it. I got family back there. Chris, you've had a long and storied career in Wilmington, and I've never heard anyone say a bad word about you. But we're going to put a stop to that tonight. All right. As many of you know, some of you do not, Chris began his career in one of the most dangerous and harrowing law enforcement positions that anyone can imagine. He was a loss prevention officer at the Sears in the Burlington Mall. That's right. Armed only with a flashlight, a white shirt, and a pair of polyester pants, Chris looked danger in the eye without fear. You can imagine how difficult it was on his family, never knowing if Chris would have to deal with a disturbance in shoes, a high-speed foot chase through sporting goods, or whether he'd have to face down an elderly woman slipping a pair of panties into her purse. Yes, it did happen, didn't it? Yes. The truth is, Chris still carries the scars of that tenure with Sears, most noticeably his wardrobe. He took that job seriously and remains proud that theft dropped off dramatically at the store after his departure. He's still looking for several suspects involved in the historic Fruit of the Loom heist of 1977. To this day, as a matter of fact, he still sends out weekly emails looking for leads. He started with the Wilmington Police Department in 1978, and in April of this year, they finally told him things just aren't working out. What I find funny is that Chris has a reputation of being technologically savvy. Apparently not to his family.
Who's laughing over it?
The truth is, it wasn't until 2003 that somebody finally told him his laptop was actually an Etch-a-Sketch. It was once he began using an actual computer that his career really took off. He is, as a matter of fact, it was through his efforts in technology that he broke down a number of walls and created communication between local law enforcement officers and agencies to facilitate, interdepartmental cooperation. And in fact, he would send out hundreds of emails daily regarding criminal activity around the region. In fact, after retiring, he was still sending out crime report emails. I know I speak for every police officer in the area when I say, quit it. In his association with NEMLEC, Chris worked as chief hostage negotiator. And he was extremely successful in that capacity, as I'm sure you know. In fact, if you've ever spent 45 minutes talking to him on the phone, you'd understand. You'd probably be ready to give up too. Oftentimes, as a matter of fact, as a result of Chris's skills in negotiation on the telephone, NEMLEC was able to move in after the perpetrator had dozed off.
That happened too.
Chris has told us that he will be working part-time in his retirement, but he's been really cryptic. He hasn't told, a lot of people he hasn't told what he's going to do, but I have uncovered the mystery. When the new Target opens in Wilmington, he'll be a junior loss prevention officer. So it comes full circle. But tonight, in all seriousness, tonight we honor Wilmington's own Opie Taylor. Chris is one of the nicest guys in town, without a doubt, and was a tremendous asset to the Wilmington Police Department. But he's also been and will continue to be a tremendous asset to the town of Wilmington. I am very proud to call Chris a friend, and I'm honored to be here tonight to help celebrate him. Thank you, Chris. If I could, I'd now like to welcome to the podium Wilmington Police Chief Michael Pagonis.
Good evening, everybody. This is kind of uncomfortable up here. Let me see if I can get this up and running. Chris.
Yes.
Obviously, everybody here has already said everything nice they're going to say tonight to
That's
you
right.
on the way in.
Yeah.
So, as we get started, first I want to thank the Tewksbury Country Club for allowing us to come here today. We vetted probably 50 different places, and this is the only place that would have us. I also want to thank my good friend and colleague Susan O'Neill for doing most of the work, for arranging this. A round of applause for Susan. Thank you. I'd like to thank Carol Neville. I'd also like to thank my command staff, Deputy Chief Robert Richter, Lieutenant Joseph Desmond, Lieutenant Brian Pupa, Lieutenant Scott Sensabaugh. They put a lot of time and effort into this as well, so thank you guys. Basically, folks, tonight there was basically two programs we were going to run earlier. We had a rated R version, but seeing as how Chris insisted community television be here, we're going to go with the rated G tonight.
Thank you.
The nice thing about this is Chris retired a couple months ago, and holding this out is that I can pretty much say whatever I want because he's no longer in the union. And I also feel, you know, with the luxuries I have as being a civil service police chief, pretty much I have to commit a felony to get fired, so I should be all set as well. Chris started his storied career in the Wilmington Police Department many years ago. And Wilmington has always had a history of having field training officers come in and introduce young officers into the law enforcement environment. So his first field training officer was none other than the beloved Jay Palmer. Everybody remembers Jay. And Jay was a rough and tumble type of guy. He really took crime fighting seriously, and he grabbed Chris, brought him under his wing. So one time, they're out in cold February night. Squall had just moved through rather quickly, left a dusting of snow, kind of crunched up real fast. It was about 0 degrees outside.
Freezing.
And they're pulling around in their old Plymouth, and they can hear the tires crackling in the snow, and they're looking at Lucci's Plaza, and it's pristine. There's nothing there. There's no marks, no tires. Everybody's asleep, comfortable at home. And as they're going in, all of a sudden, the alarm goes off, and they get a call from the station immediately. Hey, car 32. Appears there's a B&E at Lucci's. Chris is like, we're right here. He's all excited. So Jay says, just sit calm, kid. I'm going to tell you what we're going to do. First thing we're going to do is you're going to get out on this corner. You're going to watch the front of the building. He said, I'm going to go on the back, and I'll watch the back. He said, and when they come out the exit, we'll jump them, and we'll arrest them. And Chris is like, oh, my gosh, this is awesome. This is what I lived for all my life. About 2 hours goes by, still standing there. Snow had stopped. The sun almost coming up. It's like, what's going on? Sergeant Palmer walks around the side of the building, walks up, he goes, Chris, what's with the footsteps walking out of the front of the building? He says, Sarge, that's the entrance. You told me to watch the exit. All right, bear with me, Chris. It's a little quick. All right? Everybody knows Chris is a man of faith. And that's one of the things most of us admire most about Chris. Superman of faith. And he started that as a young boy. Chris always used to hang around in two places. You could always see him. He was either behind the police department, watching the guys come and go, or he was hanging around the back of St. Thomas. So Chris always knew what he wanted to do. He either wanted to be a priest or he wanted to be a police officer. So he failed the test for priest. So obviously he became a police officer. So when Chris was probably 2 years in the job, still one of the rookies, they get a call for an elderly that's about ready to pass. And the request of the family was, please call Father to come and say the last rites. Father was busy with somebody else, and he couldn't get there right away, and the old timer was fading fast. So he asked the Sergeant Joe Duffy, I think it was at the time, could you help me? So they looked around the room, and they said, Jeepers, I know Chris used to hang around St. Thomas quite a bit. They don't want to feel comfortable with it, and obviously he was junior man, so they said, hey, Chris, why don't you go say something to the old timer? He goes, I think I can do that. I've heard quite a few of the liturgies, been hanging around there for quite a while. I think I can handle it. So Chris walked over, and he knelt next to the gentleman, and he bowed his head, and he folded his hands, thought, and he said, B23. I-18, N31, G10, 039.
You're going to hell.
Well, Chris is always a clean-cut guy. So you see, Chris, a great guy, and he would always go to Don's Clipper Barber Shop to get haircuts for years. And when I had hair, we'd go in and lament about, Chris was just in here yesterday. So it was interesting. I saw Don a couple weeks ago, and Chris had been apparently by there. And Don said, I got some nice things to say about your public safety division. I said, well, that's nice. I said, what do you have to say? It's always good to hear nice things about folks. He said, well, you had a dispatcher in here about 3-4 weeks ago, come in for a haircut. And I was so happy to have him here and happy with the hard work they do. I said, you know what? The haircut's on me. So the dispatcher said, well, thanks, Don. I appreciate it. So dispatcher the next day says, that guy was so nice. I think I'll do something nice for him. So he goes back to the station. He gets a dozen public safety pamphlets. And he brings it back. He leaves them on the doorstep for Don to give out to his customers as they come in. You remember this, right?
Oh, yeah.
So Chris is in there the next day, and Don says, hey, Chris, this is really great. This guy came, brought the pamphlets. It was really nice. He says, you know what, Chris, I like you too. Haircut's on me. So Chris goes, okay. So the next day, Chris comes back. He leaves a dozen donuts on the doorstep when Don comes in the morning. So Don comes in. He's all excited. That's wonderful. Well, 3 days later, I don't know who it was, but a firefighter comes in. A firefighter, same thing. Don tells him the story about he loves public safety. Everything's great. gives the firefighter the gratis haircut, no charge, have a nice day. And Don came in the next morning with 12 firefighters lined up out front of the building. Another interesting story that we tell all our officers. Chris always loved being a police officer. He always loved to train other folks. And so when Chris became a sergeant, he took a job at NERPE, our beloved old-time academy, used to be right over here at the state hospital. And he, with other officers, senior officers, would train young folks as they came into the profession. So Chris is really a kind of a fancy guy, and I've ever seen him do undercover work. He's pretty savvy with a disguise. Usually has some type of hat, some racket chapeau or a mustache or a goatee, and he does a great job. So Chris set up the scenario where we'd have these folks come, you might be shocked, for a scenario where there was a robbery at a grocery store. Really? Yeah, nonetheless. You remember this?
Yeah,
Okay.
evidently.
So anyway, Chris goes in with two other police officers, and they decide to hide. When they're in there at the store, they look down, they see these potato sacks. So they said, you know what? Let's hide in these. It's a great idea, Sarge. So the three cops hide in there. Young fella comes in. He's going through his patrols, doing his due diligence. He walks up to the first sack. He looks at it. He goes, something's wrong with that. So he kicks it. From the sack, you hear, meow, meow. He goes, that's probably just a cat. Goes to the next one. He's looking, kicks it. The other officer says, woof, woof. That's probably just a dog. Then he goes up to the sack that Chris is in, and he kicks it. Chris says, potato.
That was actually pretty good.
I was talking to Chris earlier before we came in, and he said an interesting thing happened to him today, and I have to disagree slightly with Father Early from what I just heard. Carol was getting ready. She was in the bathroom, and of course, Chris is out in the hallway, and all of a sudden, Chris goes, knock, knock. So Carol's like, oh, interesting. They're empty nesters, right? Who's there? He goes, knock, knock. She goes, police. Who's there? Police. She goes, police who? He goes, please, I got to go to pee. All right, he did commit a felony.
You really did scale it back. Yeah.
That might be the felony you were looking for earlier. Everybody knows that Chris is technologically savvy. Chris has done a real great job with us, sending out emails to all the different agencies. He can make his own list, or Carol can. He really knows how to jazz it up and send all kinds of little attachments on it, or Carol can. So when Chris retired, his family, I understand, bought him a little iBook, little Apple iBook, right? iPhone?
MacBook.
MacBook? You got a MacBook, okay. See, I don't know. That's why you do the emails. Yeah. So he gets this thing, and I was talking to Carol today, and I said, geez, what's Chris up to? Isn't he helping you out with this? She goes, well, Chris is in his office sending emails. I said, oh, that kind of figures. When I called Chris earlier, he says, geez, I'm working really hard trying to get DigSafe out in the yard so I can get some work done over here that Carol's planned for me. So Chris has got his new smartphone. He's got all this free time. So he shows me, I walk in today, he says, hey, look at this. I'm making apps. I said, you're making apps? Remember this?
No.
I'm making apps. So he shows me the apps, and he goes, this is really interesting. This is what I'm going to do to pad my retirement. I said, that's good. Tell me about it. He goes, well, if you're interested in investment, he says, I got these apps. It's a personal hygiene app suite. And I said, interesting. Because Chris always walked around the department when he got this iPhone, and he was always flattered by this little app that they have, and he would stay in his office for hours with the lights off, just looking at this little flame. So, obviously it intrigued you. So I said, well, Chris, show me the apps. He says, okay. He says, the first app, he said, he says, it's the virtual toothpick. Understand it's a hygiene app. And I'm like, okay, well, I'll take that. I'm not exactly sure how you're going to work that out. But the second app was a virtual comb, and he's losing me at that point. I'm like, I don't really need a comb. So the third was a virtual cologne. So now I'm intrigued. I don't know how he's going to make that work. The last one was virtual toilet paper. And my concern with that is I'm not exactly sure who beta tested that. Do you know?
No, I don't.
Okay. Anyway, Chris, you're a super guy. All I can say is, out of the 500 emails we get a week, you're probably good for 300 of them. A lot of great information. We used to every now and then go through those lists, and we would pull a little trick out of it every now and then. He would think we weren't reading them, and we'd go through and would find somebody's name in there. So everybody had kind of a little joke with him. We'd pull it out of the hat. And I actually caught him about 3 weeks ago. I said, hey, I saw Joe McGillicuddy. He was on that list from Cross Street. He had no idea, so. Chris wasn't reading everything he was sending out, folks, to tell you the truth. All right. Good job, buddy. I'm sure you're going to have a long, healthy retirement. Spend a lot of time. Actually, he spent more time at the station lately than I saw him in the last 3 years. So, we hope to see more of you, and enjoy your retirement.
Thank you, Mike. Can I talk now?
I gotta tell you, very well done. That's one of the things, actually, I think you got my pen there. You're stealing my pen. Thank you.
I didn't know you could write.
That's one of the things I love about these retirement dinners is you hear real life stories and anecdotes that actually happened on the force. It's fascinating, fascinating. All right. Moving right along then. Our next speaker is also from the Wilmington Police Department. Please welcome up to the podium Detective Pat Nally.
Well, thank you very much. It's a pleasure. I'll keep that, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. What a great night and well deserved. When I heard they were selling tickets around the station, I said, hey, I'm in. Beer, Tewksbury Country Club, beer, I'm in. When they asked to make a presentation, I said, absolutely. It would be an honor. He was so important to the police department. I can't think of anybody who had such an impact on the police department and the town. And, you know, in the beginning, a lot of people don't remember when they hired him. It was a little controversial. A lot of people wondered, is it really necessary? They questioned, does Wilmington really need him? I mean, it's costly. Just feeding him would get expensive. So he started working, and it didn't take long for the naysayers to realize we made the right choice. Right away, we could see he had a nose for crime. When crime was committed, he was just panting in excitement to investigate.
Pat, I think there's a little confusion. Do you know?
Hold on, Steve.
All right.
Hey, you can tell your jokes later. We're fine. Hold on. I'm sorry. The town of Wilmington might have borders, but this officer never knew it. To him, crime had no borderlines. Whatever the case, whatever the crime, wherever it may take him, his nose is going to investigate. Apprehending the bad guy, finding the lost, helping the victim, that was his mission. To be an officer like this, you need two things: dedication and determination. This officer had it. Dedication to the job, dedication to the town, determination. He would stop at nothing to complete the mission and make an arrest. And if the bad guy didn't listen or do what he's told, he might just get bit. Just ask Butch Alpers. He might.
Hold on. We're talking about Lieutenant Neville, right?
Lieutenant Neville?
That's why we're all here, right? Lieutenant Neville, we're all here right now.
Chris Neville? Retired? Thought we were here for chemo. I thought this.
That was actually pretty good.
Well, Lieutenant Neville was good too. He didn't bite anybody. Eric, when's chemo's party? What am I going to do with this? Actually, Lieutenant Neville's a great man deserving of a night like this. I don't think people from the outside of the department truly understand the impact of Lieutenant Neville in the law enforcement community. Although Lieutenant Neville could barely turn on a computer and learned cut, paste, and the cut, copy, and paste buttons were on the right side of the mouse, too, not just at the top of the computer. He's truly the man who was responsible for bringing the police departments in the 21st century. Before Chris got started as detective lieutenant, police departments kept everything close to the vest. Departments figured anything that happened was their crime. Any information regarding their crime was their town's problem. Lieutenant Neville was able to knock down the walls of communication between departments. Believe me, there was resistance to the communication. It was not easy. I mean this in the nicest possible terms. Police officers are guarded, closed-minded, and occasional jerks. Okay? He got departments to take down the guards and share. Law enforcement will never turn back to the old ways, and it's because of the success of Lieutenant Neville. Not only is he has police department sharing information, he's even involved the banks, the loss prevention officers, I guess because he was one, the drug stores, etc. A lot of people call Bobby Orr the greatest hockey player ever. Not because he was the greatest player, thank you, Wayne Gretzky. They call Bobby Orr the greatest ever because he changed the way the game was played. Lieutenant Neville is the Bobby Orr of law enforcement. One final comment about Lieutenant Neville's impact. Last week I was at a class, and one of the detectives was talking to me in the class. He said, you know, this hurts me too. I consider Lieutenant Neville my supervisor. At first I laughed, and he's like, really? He was. If I had a question, I called Nev. If I was working on a case, I called Nev. He's a supervisor. His impact was everybody. As always, when talking about Lieutenant Chris and about his non-stop working ways, I'd say, that effing Neville, he's crazy. But I would always follow it up with, at least he vacations well. With that in mind, the only way to break him from sending emails is to put him on the golf course. Lieutenant Neville is a bi-yearly visitor to Myrtle Beach. A few of us that work closely with Lieutenant Neville are sending him off to lose a few more white balls at the best courses of Myrtle Beach. Would chemo like a bone since you replaced him? Since you replaced him, maybe?
Nice job. Thank you.
Nice job, Pat. Give it up for Pat and Ally. Police officers are jerks, huh? Better watch yourself on the ride home. All right, our next guest to pay tribute to Chris Neville has come here all the way from Beacon Hill. He is our esteemed state senator. Please welcome to the podium Senator Bruce Tarr. How are you, Bruce? See you tomorrow.
Thank you very much, Stephen. Good evening. It's great to be here with you. I have to admit, you actually caught me. I was hoping to sign the guest book and escape to beat the traffic on the way out, but that didn't happen. But Chris, it's great to be here with you and so many people who recognize how important you have been and continue to be to each and every one of us, and what an amazing member of the law enforcement community you are. And I do find it very interesting that this event actually isn't being held in Wilmington. And it's always curious to me when we do things for police officers outside of their home jurisdiction. But when I thought about that, I thought it may actually be so that when all the speeches are done tonight, you'll be able to go right out and hit the golf course because the sun will have risen, and you'll be able to go out and do all the things that you love to do. And actually, we were looking at some of the records and found out that you have been on the golf course quite a bit. And that's okay, because now, you know, the statute of limitations will have run out. It's okay, you're looking a little nervous. You're looking a little nervous. Now you know how we feel when you pull us over on Route 38. You should see him up here. He's just, you know, and it is wonderful, too, to think about the wonderful tradition of policing in the town of Wilmington. And it's also depicted here because I noticed former Chief Stewart is right out here. Did you see him?
Yes, I did see
Yeah, it's amazing. And the portrait up here is of him on his first patrol. And so I thought that was quite a good piece of symbolism about the continuity of the policing effort.
Yeah,
And yeah,
way back.
it is. And I'm told that the only difference is that when you did that the first time, it was a white horse instead of a brown one.
Right.
So I think it's great. But the fact of the matter is that we are all here to celebrate not only the work that you do as a police officer, which has defined so much of how we see you, but also the individual that you are, the character that you have, the integrity that you reflect, and the pride that you have not only in being a member of the Wilmington Police Department, but in all of the good work that you do in so many other ways, whether it's at St. Thomas, or whether it's with the Rotary, or whether it's with the Interact Club, or just the sheer joy that you have, Chris, in doing things for other people. And sometimes that occurs with a uniform on, and a lot of the time it occurs without that uniform, because it's the same person. You know, we heard a lot about how policing has changed, and over your tenure in policing, it has changed. We've gone from the use of having almost no technology to using high technology, and from the use of a lot of different methods in policing to things now like community policing, where you build relationships with people and police that way. You always did that. And so while the way that you've done things may have changed because the times changed, the person that you are never changed. And I suspect that it never will. You'll be a person that cares about his family. You'll be a person that cares about each and every one of us and who puts other people first in his life, who cares about making a positive impact on the lives of kids because ultimately it's a positive impact for all of us. And so it has been a remarkable tenure for you, and we all owe you a debt of gratitude. But I hope that you will find time now to do the other things in your life that you like to do. I know you like to travel. That's why we came to Tewksbury tonight. I know you like to play golf. I hope no one gets injured. But most of all, I think we all feel just very warm and very good about having you as a member of the community, having you as a friend. And those things will never change after you stop wearing a badge every day. And that's why I'm honored to be here to offer you the congratulations of myself and my colleagues in the Senate. You can stand up now, it's okay.
Okay.
Kind of look like you're waiting for me to say, well, the defendant, please rise. But at any rate, I do want to say that I know that the town manager is here, a good friend, Mike Kyra, who does an incredible job. And I don't know if he's spoken yet.
Not yet.
But I really was hoping to be here when he did, because I wanted to be here for the moment when Kojak presented a citation to Andy Griffith. And I know that moment is coming in just a little while. How many microphones are up here, Steve? This is amazing.
Hey, take your pick.
You know, it's like, this is like, the good guy award in exile. It's unbelievable. So at any rate, Chris, it's a real honor. And I want to thank you for all that you've done for all of us, but particularly for what you've done for me, the good friend that you've been, the counsel that you've given, and really the icon of good public service and good policing that you've always been. So for myself and my colleagues, we have a citation that reads, "Be it known that the Massachusetts Senate hereby extends its congratulations to Detective Lieutenant J. Christopher Neville in recognition of your 34 years of dedicated service to the Wilmington Police Department." Now there's a gentleman standing in front of us with the evidence camera, so we're going to have to think about how we're going to take this picture in a moment. "And be it further known that the Massachusetts Senate extends best wishes for continued success, that this citation be duly signed by the President of the Senate and attested to and a copy thereof transmitted by the Clerk of the Senate. This is signed by our Senate President, Therese Murray. It's attested to by our Clerk, William F. Welch, and I'm proud to offer it on May 10th of 2012. And Chris, let me just suggest with the camera here, what a pleasure it's going to be to ask you to hold this up in front of your chest, the way that you ask people in the lineup to hold the numbers. But why don't we do this to get out of the way of this multitude of microphones? No, don't move yet.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Sorry.
He's right there. He's been waiting. So I'm going to give you this. We're going to move this way.
Yeah.
We're going to turn that way. You're going to hold the upper left-hand corner. I'm going to hold the lower right-hand corner. And then we're going to smile. Can you do that?
I can figure that out.
All right. Please hold your applause till the camera clicks. Come right over here.
Okay.
You get that one? Yeah, I'll get that one. Smile.
Senator Bruce Tarr. During that speech, we were starting to wonder if you actually knew Chris at all. And we would, I think of no better way to follow that up but by inviting our state representative to the podium to present Mr. Jim Maselli.
Seriously, and it's hard to be serious with this guy up here, but seriously, I too, like you, have observed Chris in the community, and they said tonight might be a roast. Let me tell you, it's hard to do a roast with this guy as far as I'm concerned, and maybe some people feel the same way out there, and some do a roast with any subject matter that's in front of them. This guy is a pretty serious guy as far as I'm concerned. I see him in church. He's a reader. He's very active in the church. He's very active in all the programs that the church puts together. He's active in the community. He goes beyond just his occupation. And he's an outstanding police officer, and I just heard what a legend he is with email. And boy, I'll tell you, maybe I could take some lessons from you. But seriously, it's an honor for me to be here tonight. A gentleman who's a great family man, and we all know that. He's an outstanding example, as I said earlier, in the community, and I'd like to present him with a citation also. And it reads as follows. Let's see. And geez, I think I'm the only one legal in this place tonight. I represent both towns, Wilmington and Tewksbury. Yeah. And I think I've eaten more meals here in the last 2 weeks than anywhere else. And I've got a citation. It's the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, the House of Representatives. Be it hereby known to all that the Massachusetts House of Representatives offers its sincerest congratulations to Detective Lieutenant J. Christopher Neville in recognition of your retirement from the Wilmington Police Department after 34 years of dedicated service, both as a patrolman and a detective lieutenant. We thank you for your devotion and commitment to a job that was so important to the safety and lives of all of our residents. Your selflessness and compassion for helping people has made our community a better place in which to live. In talking about the community, it was terrific. Yesterday I had the hockey team in Boston, and we celebrated their victories and what a credit they are to the community. And this afternoon I was with the senior citizens, this morning with the firefighters, and tonight, when you talk about public service, I'm here paying tribute to one of our best. And I think I can get away with saying that tonight amongst his friends. He's probably one of the best gentlemen to don that uniform. And the entire membership extends its very best wishes, expresses a hope for future good fortune, continued success in all endeavors. Signed the 10th day of May, 2012, offered by Bob DeLeo, Speaker of the House, offered by James Maselli, State Representative. And I want to wish the best to you. And I think you know this very well, too. You can't do this alone. You've got to have a wife and a family that stand behind you, and they're as much a part of this department as you are. So congratulations, and let me present you. Here, wait a minute, whoa. Let me pull that too, will you? Take it easy.
Very well done, Jim. So take that. All right, now, if you would, welcome to the podium a representative of our Board of Selectmen, our chairman this year. Please welcome Lou Samaglia.
Well, I knew I had the right place when I walked in. This was definitely a police officer function. The bar was full. You couldn't get near it. The reason we moved to Tewksbury this evening is because there's a bylaw in Wilmington, over 100 people, you have to have a police detail there. Well, we couldn't get a police detail. And being the chairman of this Board of Selectmen has been an honor and a privilege for so many different things. And tonight is not one of them. I've known Craig for many, many years. Many years. And he was telling me the first time, his big first traffic stop. It was a celebrity. He was all excited. I remember the first time I met him, he couldn't wait to tell me the story that he actually pulled over Janet Jackson. And I said, "You're kidding me? What'd you pull her over for?" He said she had a headlight out.
Good. Yeah, they got it.
You might get one more
Sorry,
year.
Father. It is my privilege and honor to be here tonight and to be able to present you with this from the Board of Selectmen on behalf of the citizens of the town of Wilmington. The Board of Selectmen wishes to commend you for the distinguished service you have performed for the past 34 years. 34 years.
Long time.
Jesus, when did you join? She was 40 when you joined. 34 years as a patrolman sergeant, and for the past 8 years as a lieutenant for the town of Wilmington Police Department. We recognize you for your faithful and devoted service to your profession and to the department in which you served. Your many years of service to the town and the citizens of Wilmington are most appreciated, and our sincere wishes are extended to you for a happy and fulfilling retirement.
Thank you, Lord.
Thank you, Lou. I think it was good of you to give Chief Pagonis some tips on the mic. It doesn't actually have to go in your mouth. All right, it's now my privilege to welcome to the podium representing the Massachusetts State Police, Major Quinn.
Okay, so I'm sitting and I hear from Father. You still here, Father Early? Father, I see Father Early gets up and he starts talking about this lovely document. The Pope himself has blessed it. It's a beautifully embroidered piece of parchment. And I'm sitting down there at the back and I'm going, oh my God, I've got that $1.75 plaque that we give out. Please don't put me up after the priest. Please don't put me up after the priest. I say that in jest, obviously. I called around all day today. Everybody I could think of, I need some stuff for Chris Neville tonight. Give me some stuff on Chris. I don't know. He's a pretty straight-laced guy. He's got 34 years on the police department. He's had to have gotten drunk and smashed up his cruiser at least once a day. No. As a matter of fact, don't listen to this. The guy who wants to remain nameless says, Dermot, you'd have a better chance getting some stuff on the Pope that you're going to get on the The good news is, because they told me, well, you got to get up and say something funny. I mean, you know, you're not a good-looking guy, you're not an articulate guy. You got to get up and say something funny. So I did notice, it's great company here tonight. I bumped into a couple of my old pals here tonight, and the Medford Police Department's here tonight. I see Detective Mikowski and Mike Goulding up there. Welcome, guys. I know you don't get out of the city that I saw you. They walk in, they're looking at the chandelier, and they go, Mike, what do you think of that thing? And Mike goes, yeah, that's worth a lot of dollars. Look at the painting up on the wall there. So, I know it's going to be a little bit of a pain in the neck, but the staff will be conducting an inventory of the silverware because we're trying to get through this. Okay, in all seriousness, folks, I really started working with Chris back around 2006. Knew of him before that. Can't tell you I did a lot of casework with him, but I had gotten a mandate from my job to get up and fix the whole information sharing thing. Why aren't we doing a better job after 9/11 breaking down these barriers between municipal, state, and federal government? And I can honestly tell you, every time I started talking to departments across the state, Chris Neville's name came up. In all honesty, Chris Neville has done more than any other police officer in this state to break those walls down. Credit to the Wilmington Police Department. He's known, I travel across the state. I'm in Chicopee one day, I'm down Cape Cod the next day. For those of you like myself from up in the Merrimack Valley, when I say Cape Cod, that's not Quincy Shore Drive. I just found out last year. They've been lying to us for years. That is not Cape Cod. But he's known throughout the state. It's amazing. So I just want to come here tonight I know I've got my fancy $75 plaque here somewhere. It's so attractive, somebody probably responded with it. $75 right there. Walmart. Actually, Senator, are you still here? Senator, did you, are you, no? I just wanted to point out, I noticed the chief mentioned that he was a civil service chief. They don't give majors tests on the state police, so I just wanted to make sure the senator knows. It's just us trying to keep the Commonwealth's budget in whack. Other than that, we would have gotten the $5. So the plaque reads, Detective Lieutenant Christopher Neville, Wilmington Police Department, 34 years of service, hereby awarded this certificate of appreciation. In grateful recognition of the time and energy extended on behalf of the Department of State Police and the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, the men and women of the nation's oldest statewide law enforcement agency salute you. Signed, Marian J McGovern, Colonel Superintendent.
Thank you, Major Quinn. All right, and also representing NEMLEC Detectives, please welcome to the podium Chief Kevin Mooney of the Lincoln Police Department.
Thank you. Chris?
Hi, Chief.
I didn't know this was a roast, and I certainly didn't know it was after listening to your chief. But I did like the comedian you hired, Father Early. Very good. And you're not too bad either.
Just get a thumbs up.
On behalf of the NEMLEC police chiefs, I have the honor of being one of the control chiefs with Chief Murphy from Chelmsford, who couldn't be here tonight, to come and recognize Chris. You're all hearing tonight how much he did, and you all know what he did in Wilmington, but he's been a huge impact on policing in the NEMLEC region. Things wouldn't be like they are now if it wasn't for Chris. And we certainly appreciate it, and I think when someone's doing such a good job as you, we kind of leave it alone. And that's the right thing to do, I think, and we appreciate that. And certainly here, all the present police officers are here, but I think it's amazing to see all the retired members who Chris stepped into their role with NEMLEC. And I think that's a huge amount of respect they're showing being here tonight for you. So that's really was an eye-opener to me. But on behalf of the NEMLEC police chiefs, this one's bigger than yours, Dermot. The plaque.
That was a good line.
Presented to Lieutenant J. Christopher Neville in grateful appreciation for your years of outstanding service and devotion, May 2012. Chris, congratulations.
All right, now I'd like to welcome retired FBA agent and former Wilmington resident, Charlie Walsh.
All that good news, now we're going to hear the bad news. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I'm proud to be here to give best wishes to Chris on his retirement. And actually, I'm going to cover two themes tonight. I'm going to cover, first of all, his career, and then I'm going to cover his retirement. It may be, I'm going to try to make it as short as possible. I did happen to notice, by the way, that Mike Cara is here. Last time, Mike Cara, beg your pardon, sir. Last time I was at a retirement party for somebody from Wilmington, the previous speaker in front of me said that if the guest of honor, who was a Wilmington detective, were looking for Whitey Ford, they would have found him by now. And I said, Whitey Ford? I stood up and introduced myself as being from the FBI. I said, I had to apologize, we're looking for the wrong guy. Well, we found the wrong guy, Mike, eventually, but nevertheless, I had to close that chapter with you. Anyhow, Dermot Quinn from the State Police, I'm sorry to say that the FBI had their deep throat in the Watergate investigation, as you recall. And we also have our deep throat in the Wilmington Police Department, because I'm about to read Chris Neville's evaluation reports over the span of his career, as evidenced by several police chiefs along the way. Yeah, take notes, Chris.
Yeah.
And in his early career, in some of his evaluations, I took some anecdotes from some of these evaluations about Chris. And first of all, one of his earliest evaluations said, "I would not breed from this officer. This officer is really not so much of a has-been, but more of a definitely won't be. This officer reminds me much of a gyroscope, always spinning around at a frantic pace, but not really going anywhere. Since my last report, he has reached rock bottom and has started to dig. He has the wisdom of youth and the energy of old age. And this officer should go far, and the sooner he starts, the better. He works well under constant supervision and cornered like a rat in a trap." And then as he goes on in his career and Chris began to achieve commandership status, there is one here that's especially important. The evaluation states that his men would follow him anywhere, but only out of curiosity. Sorry, I had to tell you that. Now, let's talk about, I've noticed everybody so far, we've been talking about Chris's career. I want to talk about his retirement. That's the fun part. And there are two quotes about retirement that I came across and before I came here tonight. The first one is retirement is when you stop living at work and begin working at living. And the second is retirement is also the beginning of life and not the end. And George Foreman once said, the question isn't at what age, and I think this really applies to you. George Foreman once said, the question isn't at what age I want to retire, it's at what income.
Who's laughing?
And I want to take a little page from David Letterman's book here and give you the top 10 reasons you probably retired. You know you're retired, okay? Number 10, you and your teeth don't sleep together. You try to straighten out the wrinkles in your socks and you discover you're not wearing any. And it takes 2 tries to get up from the couch. Your idea of a night out is sitting on the back deck. Getting lucky means you remember where you parked the car in the parking lot. You step off the curb and look down one more time to make sure the street is still there. Everything hurts, and what doesn't hurt doesn't work. You sink your teeth into a steak, and they stay there. You wonder how you could be over the hill when you don't even remember being on top of it. And last but not least, you have more hair in your ears and nose than on your head. And lastly but not least, the trouble with retirement is you never get a day off.
That's exactly right.
And with that, I again want to first of all say I'm proud to be counted among Chris's friends, and I'm going to miss Chris because as those of you from Wilmington know, I do a lot of schools here at the Wilmington Police Department, and it's going to be an empty day the next day I come back, next time I come back here, and Chris isn't there to greet me in the morning because he's the guy that motivated me to keep everything going, and he was always there whenever I needed something, as you've heard from previous guests here tonight, and that's his legacy. And one thing I didn't want to do is replicate, and Chris has all these nice plaques. He told me he's going to put them up on the I Love Me wall when he gets home, and so I wanted to give him something. Then Chris knows me, I'm a hands-on instructor. So I want to give him something that is going to require hands-on. And by the way, before I'll be remiss if I don't mention something. Chris has helped a lot of people in credit card cases, I heard earlier tonight. Well, Chris and his son Scott were up visiting me one night. We went to my favorite Irish bar called the Holy Grail. And Chris, for one of the few times in his life, sprung for the check. and he used his credit card. Well, next morning I get a panic call from Chris. Somebody is pinging my credit card. And so we did a little backtracking, a little inter-agency cooperation here, FBI and Wilmington Police
Didn't
Department.
solve it, though.
And we didn't solve it, but we got the credit card back.
We did,
Anyway.
yes.
But needless to say, if I can grab something here, thank you. And Chris, this is something for you and Carol, because Carol certainly deserved this.
Hold it or?
You can open it, if you would, please. And so that when you're sitting, when you have that hot date out in the back deck, you can sit back and enjoy a few cold ones.
Very nice.
And they are actually your fingerprints on the glass.
Thank you, Carol. Nice job. Thank you.
Very nice. Yeah, I'm not going to need your notes.
Carol, I couldn't find your fingerprints, so I had to.
They're on file somewhere. By the way, I just want to also mention that there's, in addition to the law enforcement community, there's a lot of civic groups that Chris is a member of and belongs to, represented by the Rotary Club and the Good Guys and WCTV. And there was one special table that actually wasn't able to make it, but they really, really wanted to be here for Chris, and that's the Billerica House of Corrections inmates. We're supposed to be at that table right there. So it just goes to show that even if you're arrested by Chris, he's still a good guy.
In the city of Everett. One of the first things, I got an email from my local MIS, our computer person from the city of Everett, sometime after I started receiving emails from Chris, and it went something like this. Who is Neville? And I wrote back, I thought I was in some kind of trouble, and I said, well, and I went into this long explanation about how this is great lieutenant, he's doing all this great stuff. And I think if we were having a phone conversation, he would have stopped me midstream to say, these Neville emails are the single greatest threat to the New England computer infrastructure since Y2K. Okay? Since Y2K. I mean, he just didn't understand the benefit of what it was that was going on here. A few years after that, I remember being in the South Caribbean. I was on a cruise. Now, you remember what I'm talking about, don't you? Okay, I'm on a cruise, and like some of my colleagues, I happen to have the phone with me while I was on vacation. And let me explain why I have the phone with me while I'm on vacation. Because I know that on Monday morning when I return, my inbox is going to be around 750. And if I don't go out on vacation while everybody's asleep, it's going to take me 3 weeks to get through them all. So I went through them, and I happened to see one come in from Lieutenant Neville. I think we were somewhere around, we had taken the the Disney cruise, and I think I was at Castaway Key when I got the email. And it was Saturday or Sunday night. And I wrote back and I said, hey, what are you doing? Relax, take the weekend off. Somehow we ended up on the phone with each other. Come to find out, he's about 30 nautical miles to my east on another ship, and we're having a conversation about something going on up in Billerica. Needless to say, my ex wasn't real happy with that. So. But it's not your fault. I just want to tell you that it wasn't your fault. In my most recent conversation with the lieutenant, I was coming in Everett. I wasn't on duty. I was in a great hurry to get down to Plymouth Academy. We had some new recruits down here. I was going to work APP with them, do some scenario training, get shot by simunitions, just have a great old time. The phone rings. J. Christopher Neville. Okay, sorry. Lieutenant, how are you? And in typical Chris Neville fashion, this is how the conversation went. Sergeant Jerry, Lieutenant Chris Neville, how are you, sir? And he says, I'll be quick with the niceties. How's the family? Very good. Okay, good. We have a kid on a GPS. He's down on Revere Beach Parkway right now. We have a GPS on him. He might be at, let me think, Golden Oldies. Yeah, Golden Oldies. I think Golden Oldies is the reason that everybody involved with this entire email list anyway. Because every one of you know where Golden Oldies is. You've all heard of it. So he says to me, he then says to me, we have a kid on a GPS. He's down on the Parkway right now. I'm gonna hang up with you. I'll give your phone number to 9 other detectives from the Northeast region. And he wasn't kidding. I got phone calls. I was getting phone calls for the next 20 minutes. Couldn't find another detective to help me out. To get down there, I ended up talking to Pat and Allie. I ended up talking to a guy from Methuen, Pelham, I don't know, 13 other southern New Hampshire states for one guy. But at the end of it all, we picked them up, we locked them up, we got a bunch of evidence on a bunch of breaks that happened that day, all coordinated by Chris Neville. Now, I don't think without Chris Neville, I think in my career, and I think a lot of you would agree with me, and I know we pick on the emails because we get a lot of them, but you know what? Without that, a lot of us in this room never would have the opportunity to network, to meet each other, or get to the level that we are at today. We are where we are today as a region, as a Northeast region, and Chris has a lot to do with that. I have no doubt about that. And I am grateful myself for having met him, a better detective for having known him, for having worked with him. He mentored me a little bit in some cases. I've called him on cases that had nothing to do with, with Wilmington. That's the kind of guy he is. You could call him at 2 o'clock in the morning if you had to. Have I done that?
Not yet.
Okay. Did you change your phone number? You might want to do that. But the point is, I just wanted to say for myself professionally and from the city of Everett, I want to thank you for everything that you've done for all of us. Not only for myself, I'm sure everyone in the room mirrors the same thing that I'm saying to you. You are a credit to our profession, and you are someone that I only hope that I could be as good as you have been. And this room, the people in this room, the amount of people in this room, as well as the people that couldn't make it or couldn't get a ticket, because I'll tell you, tickets were hard to get. When I called Susan the very first day and I said, can you do me a favor? Put me aside 2 tickets. And I didn't have a chance to get up there. You know how things busy can get. So on a Sunday morning, I think it was, Mike Goulding from Medford and I met at the Texas Roadhouse parking lot, and it was like a drug deal. If the narcotics unit saw us, we were locked up. It was, hey, Mike, how you doing? Here's a $60, here's your ticket, see you later. And we were gone. I didn't want to miss the chance to be here to celebrate with all of you the career of Chris Neville. I want to thank you, and I want to honor you, and
Thank you,
good luck to you in anything that comes to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Sergeant Jeffrey. All night, all we're hearing about is how your emails are going out to people from all over the region, and you brought all these people in, and it's obvious that no one in your department will speak to you. You are obviously a very lonely man, so I'm glad that you brought everyone together. Next, representing the Somerville Police Department, please welcome Deputy Chiefs Michael Cabral and Paul Upton.
All right, first let me say thank you very much to the Wilmington Police Department and the town of Wilmington for allowing us to be here and have this opportunity. When you talk about police officers of Chris Neville's caliber, you hear certain things, cough, one of Wilmington's finest, and I can tell you from a life experiences that Wilmington has the best police department in Palmer, Massachusetts. And I say that, round of applause. I say that because as a resident of Wilmington for the past 20 years, I would see Chief Pagonis and me, never chief's meetings, and he would say to me, oh, I saw that your son got stopped last week. And then I'd see him a month later and he'd tell me, oh, I saw that your daughter got stopped yesterday. And then I'd see him a month later and he'd say, I saw your wife got stopped this evening. So let me just say to the Wilmington police officers, you guys do a great job in Wilmington. Thank you very much for your service. Thank you also. Now for Chris, the reason why we're here. Chris, many people have said a lot of wonderful things, great job that you do. You have mentored a lot of young detectives, people like Kenny Silver from Wakefield, just joining on. I've got Paul here, one of our young detectives, who you've been able to mentor. You've done a great job, well respected. People like you are hard to find, you will be missed, and I'm just glad I had the opportunity to be here tonight and say thank you for everything, and thank you, beautiful family in the Wilmington Police Department, for sharing Chris with us.
Thank you, Mike.
So, Chris, on behalf of the men and women of the Somerville Police Department, you've been that extra detective that's not on the payroll that's helped put a lot of bad guys away. I know there's a lot of people at MCI, Walpole, and other facilities that are celebrating this right now.
Don't tell them, all right?
The word is out, Chris. But from the Somerville Police Department to Lieutenant Chris Neville, in grateful appreciation for your investigative assistance and support from the Somerville Police Department. Thank you. you very much, Chris. You will be missed.
Quarter to 10, yes, we only have 25 more speakers. As I mentioned a little bit earlier, Chris is not only a tremendous police officer, but he's very, very involved in his community, and we have a number of groups that are going to speak to that. And I'd like to start with WCTV and welcome Tom Pizzara to the podium to speak.
As an 11th hour speaker, I really didn't have much time to prepare. But I thought I'd try to say something humorous.
Stand over here so Don can see you over there.
Okay. I thought I'd try to say something humorous, try to tell anecdotes about Chris. The only thing I've only known Chris really for the last few years. Before that, it was an occasional run-in. But for the last few years, I've been on the board of directors at WCTV, and that's when I met Chris. He is probably most of you people are from the law enforcement community. What you probably don't know is that Chris also spreads his wings a bit. He's been on the board of directors at WCTV for 10 years, served as the president for at least twice. And I'm just going to direct my statements directly to you, Chris.
Go ahead.
It's been a pleasure. I just want you to know that all your colleagues at WCTV are sitting in the boondocks over there in the corner. And Steve York said that the Billerica House of Representative
Correction, same thing.
The Billerica House of Correction was not represented. Well, I beg to differ with you. Vinny Bombas from there is here. And that was a couple of years ago. Chris, retirement is just another adventure in your life. I wish you and Carol all the best. Go out, enjoy yourself.
We will.
And have a good time.
Chris has also been an active member of the Wilmington Rotary Club for many, many years. When did you join, Chris? That's good. So I'd like to welcome to the podium the president, this year's president of the Wilmington Rotary Club. Please welcome Steve Bjork.
Steve Bjork.
The truth is, I didn't know I was going to be speaking for the Rotary Club until I got the email with the agenda on it. Susan, thanks a lot. So I kind of used all my stuff up early, but I will say that Chris is there every Wednesday. Since his retirement, he's not on town time, not so much. I can't count how many Wednesdays he's had the radio to his ear and he's had to leave early. Now still, actually, you're still using that excuse. But I asked him actually at the meeting the other day, I said, is it different? Does it feel weird not to put on your gun every morning now? And he said, well, I usually forgot it anyway. So it was, the Rotary Club, as you can well imagine, is a pretty rowdy organization, so it was really good to have some law enforcement officer there with a gun. And to show our appreciation for your dedication to the Rotary Club, not to be outdone by some of these people who spent a lot of money. This is a pen and pencil set that retails for roughly 75 cents. And it's the only thing we could really come up with because we're short on funds this year.
That's nice. I do appreciate that, Steve.
Thank you, Chris. And next, representing the Wilmington Good Guy Committee, please welcome Jo Marie O'Mahony.
I'm also the only woman that's going to be speaking tonight, so I wasn't going to comment on the fact that I put pantyhose on for the first time in 12 years, but I think it's appropriate, given that I'm evidently the only one not packing heat, at least that you can see. But I am the 2011 Good Guy recipient. I joked last year a little bit about my youth, and tonight I realized that I was one when Chris Neville became a Wilmington police officer. So I will again joke about my youth, for sure. I don't think that I got the call today. It sounds like a lot of us got the call today that we were going to be able to speak to Chris and for Chris. He was the 2010 Good Guy recipient. But I questioned whether it was the appropriate choice to speak on behalf of the good guys, given my profession. I am going to tell you what I do, and I ask you not to draw your weapons. I am a defense attorney. I represent children and parents in care and protection cases and CHINs and DYS revocation hearings. And to make matters worse, my husband, who's not here, he's babysitting. I would not bring him tonight because I knew law enforcement would be here. Is a criminal defense attorney as well. So he did regret he couldn't come. He's watching our children tonight, but he did ask that I give this to Chris. He knows. Once you're blue, you're always blue. We watch Blue Bloods as well, Father Early, so that's our point of reference for this evening, not in the courtroom, what happens there. But he did know, at some point when police officers retire, there might come a day that in a situation they might not know who they're dealing with. They might not be able to kind of pull the strings, even though obviously Chris has a lot of strings to pull. So my husband, David, did ask that I present this on behalf of the law office of Mahoney Ardito in Wilmington. Get out of jail free card with his business card. So again, given that it's only been a few hours for me to prepare. But now onto the good guy. A lot of people wonder about this good guy thing, and I honestly didn't know about it. Chris was the 2010 good guy, and I couldn't have told you that until a year ago when he presented the award to me. For those who want to know the criteria of the good guy, I do ask that you don't look at the table over there, because obviously there's not much criteria that was gone into the selection of it, and I am probably not the best representative of it. But Chris, I asked Bob DePalma, who I came with tonight, who I woke up to hear me speak, when Chris was picked, what was the deliberation like? What was the process like? And he shared with me a very poignant story that I just want to take a minute to share with you. He said, it came down to a few people that we deliberate at Rocco's, so the drinks are freely given. And he said, it was around 11 o'clock, finally, I think 5 drinks in, right, Bob? And he said, it really came down to Chris Neville, and there was someone else. I don't even know who the other person was. It doesn't matter. They didn't get it, right? And they said, we can spell Chris's name. And there was a budget issue that year, so, he did tell me, I don't know if Chris ever commented on this publicly, but Chris is missing an H as well as one of the L's, but he was picked in 2010 because he had the shortest name, so congratulations. But in all seriousness, the Good Guy Award is given, and I'm the newest one. This is my last evening as the current Good Guy. Tomorrow night we will anoint someone new for the 2012 year. The Good Guy Award is for people who go above and beyond in the community, and Chris certainly has demonstrated that with all of the work that he's done outside of the work that he does in the police department. So I'm glad that I get to speak to that tonight. But I would be remiss if I didn't point out that now he's retired, and that means he's going to have a lot more time to help us. So again, I only had a few hours to prepare for this. The gag gift, I was told I had to bring a gag gift, and the get out of jail card does not constitute it because it's not a $1.75 plaque from Walmart. So I got Chris a planner, and my goal is to get all the good guys to tell me their activities for the next year that we expect Chris to attend. So there's going to be some food pantry drives, some top stuff, and Chris will be there. He can work his vacations around it. Because the reality is, even though we're speaking at his retirement party, next to me, he's one of the youngest good guys still alive. So I'm going to be counting on him for at least 20 to 30 more years. So he can't go anywhere for a while. But I did tab just one last thing, and I promise not to speak for much longer because I can tell you're all crossing your arms and hating me. I put the pink tab in because I was told that when you retire, you're supposed to have a bucket list. And I don't necessarily believe in bucket lists, and we've been talking theoretically tonight about bucket lists, but I do know that the wife and family of a police officer has had to deal many, many years of him not being home. He doesn't work a 9-to-5 job. His hours are all over the place. So instead of a bucket list, my request, my order actually, is that you write honey-do lists. Kids, please do as well. And before he can do anything fun, he has to do at least 5 of those. So with that, I give him the Good Guy Planner.
Montgomery. All right, let's bring up somebody. Yeah, let's go actually. Chris is also very, very active in, as part of being a Rotarian, he's very active in the youth organization of Rotary, and that's Rotary Interact. So I'd like to welcome to the podium this year's president of Wilmington Interact, Pat Giroux.
Chris, so first off, congratulations, and thank you for all your dedication, not only to the community, but also to the Wilmington Interact Club as well. Secondly, to all you fellow officers out there, just so you know, I am no longer on my JOL restriction, so no need to pull over on my way home. Anyway, Chris, we got you a little something. It's from all of us at Interact. Go ahead and open it up.
Okay.
We got you this nice warm sweatshirt, just in case you decide to skip another event of ours, like senior citizen leaf raking, because you're in Hawaii or somewhere else warm. We thought a sweatshirt would be a great idea because the sweatshirt might keep you warm and remind you of those tropical dreams. So Chris, thank you very much for your dedication and all your hard work to us. Thank you.
Pat, hold on one second. Can you see that for a second? Say that again. Just for everybody over 40, if you want to remember what youth was like, Pat has his notes on this. And he was reading it from here. Pat, we all hate you. All right, one more time, I'd like to welcome to the podium Wilmington Police Chief Mike Pagonis.
All right, Chris, we have a couple presentations for you that you collected. First off, we'll start. I'd like to present you with this flag. I'll hold the mic up higher. This flag was actually flown over the Capitol, the United States Capitol, on April 2nd, 2012, at the request of the Honorable Scott P. Brown, the United States Senator. This flag was flown for Detective Lieutenant J. Christopher Neville in honor of your retirement from the town of Wilmington Police Department. So, congratulations, Chris. Also, we have a couple more things. It's tradition in police departments when someone retires that they get their retirement shield, and Chris is the Lieutenant Detective Retirement Shield from the town of Wilmington. He got messed up, it doesn't say retired on it. So. The funny thing is, he's actually not retired. Like I said earlier, he's in the station more now than he ever was. Thank you. And I also have something from the Wilmington Fire Department, and you'll find this interesting. The fire department put a lot of thought into this. They grabbed this, I think, about 5 o'clock this afternoon. I'm going to present this to you because the fire chief speaks so eloquently. This is a jersey from the Wilmington Fire Department, and I think that the town manager and everybody else will appreciate these. These are actually a pair of shorts that they used to wear. They don't need them anymore, so they donated these to Chris. So you're working around the yard. Last but not least, I was thinking of some stuff over there, and I'm listening to all the crimes you solved all over the place, and I quickly got a hold of Charlie Fury's, our local statistician, and I said, geez, Charlie, you're hearing about all these crimes he solved over the Commonwealth. They said, how many actual crimes has Chris solved in Wilmington in the past 6 years? So I said, geez, I'll have to take a look, Chief. None? He hasn't found any yet, Chris. Apparently you were busy with other stuff. So yeah. I felt it at that time to also present you with an invoice, actually. For the 4 portals, 3 chest badges, and 4 blouse jackets that you've lost over the years. So congratulations, Chris. Thanks, Mike. Chris Neville, honestly. A true gentleman. When I first came on the job, Chris was the type of guy. My mom worked at Sears, so I knew Chris over the years. Very impressive individual. Chris approached his first day with as much vigor as he approached his last day. And we recently hired 6 officers. And in our interview, when we offered them positions with the department, we used Chris's ethic, his work ethic, as an example of what we're looking for in future Wilmington police officers. Truly, Chris came in every day with a smile. He came in every day with a great attitude. He hit the ground running. He stayed late every night. He would always drive out about 6, 7 o'clock at night, and sometimes he'd call me and I'd be in my living room and say, "I'm just leaving now, Chief, where are you?" Chris worked hard for everyone. Chris worked hard for his family, obviously a wonderful family. Chris worked hard for the community. He worked hard for the police department. Chris, probably his biggest asset is his friendship. Chris would always be there for you no matter what you needed or what you wanted. Chris was always a wise counsel. You could ask Chris any questions at any time. He has a plaque outside of his office, I think still might be there today, that says Father Neville. Because if anybody was ever in need of anything, Chris was the go-to guy. So, it's sad to see Chris formally leave the employee of the town of Wilmington, and he's no longer collecting a paycheck on the regular payroll. But like I said earlier, he's still there every day. He still comes in, still sending emails, still giving phone calls, and folks are still reaching out to him on a regular basis. So, I can't say enough about what Chris has done for me as a police officer, what he's done for everybody in the Wilmington Police Department, both past and present. So thank you very much, Chris.
Thank you, Mike.
And now please welcome to the podium Wilmington Town Manager, Michael Kyra.
Good morning. What can I say about Chris Neville? Thank you very much. There was an interesting reference to the fire department and the shorts. For those of you who didn't get that, we suggested that they shouldn't wear shorts on duty. We did have to go through bargaining on that. We gave them pajamas, they gave us shorts. And how about Steve Bjork, who is a professional comedian, volunteering his time tonight, which proves that you get what you pay for. There are few people still left here. I think the wait staff, though, outnumbers the folks. So we want to thank everybody, especially Chief Pagonis. Even a train stops. And he did it twice. He went up to Boston and back to Lowell. Are there any other police departments that want to speak tonight? We still have Rockport and Westfield left. And how about Somerville? They had to send 2 people up here. It's pretty clear now why Chris Neville didn't accomplish anything in Wilmington. He was out there doing everything for everybody else, huh? And he was a good guy. We remember doing this a couple of years ago. I remember giving Chris a special gift, a buy one, get one free coupon from Subway. I didn't even get a piece of lettuce out of it. But he certainly has been a fine fellow here in the Department of Police Department in Wilmington. Actually, when Chief Pagonis came to me and told me that he was retiring, I just simply said, "How can you tell?" But I thought to myself, I need to find something for him to do that's compatible with the work effort he gave to the police department. So we're putting Chris on the planning board. They only meet twice a month. And I just want to say that it's too bad Father Early has left. We gave so much deference to Father Early. He actually had the funniest line of the night 2 years ago, I thought, when he spoke at Chris's Good Guy Award, when he said that Chris and he have a lot in common. If it wasn't for sin and crime, they'd both be out of business. And I thought that was a great line, and I'm just pleased to have borrowed it. And I also want to recognize, as the chief has recognized, this wonderful department that we have here in the town of Wilmington, particularly all of the command officers who are here. we're just a few clowns short of a circus. And they're led by Chief Pagonis, of course, who I'm sure wowed you all with his impression of a cat and a dog. And his profound statement, "Police, I gotta pee." And Pat Nally, he's now officially out of the will. As Bernie is still here. First he said, Chris Neville made the greatest contribution, and he corrected himself and said a dog made the greatest contribution to the police department, not his father, who was a distinguished chief here for many years. And speaking of chiefs, it's a pleasure to say that we have all of our police chiefs that are with us. I think Bob Spencer had to leave along with 60% of the crowd, but Bobby Stewart is here, and Bernie Nally, and also Bob Spencer, and of course Mike Pagonis. And I've had the pleasure over the last 22 years to work with all of them. They certainly, as somebody said earlier, our resident who is from the Somerville Police Department, Wilmington has a tremendous police department. They really do. We're one of the few departments in the Commonwealth who has full accreditation, and I think that's certainly impressive. I do want to acknowledge that our two members of our legislature, our legislative delegation, were here giving out I think it's a record now for Representative Misselli, his 3,047th citation. Chris has 6 of them. I don't have any. It's great, the legislative delegation. Now, it's not really Mutt and Jeff, it's more like Mutt and Mutt. And how about our chairman, Lou Samaglia? First he insults the police chief, then he makes a sexist remark, then he apologizes to Father Early, who in fact was the only one laughing. And I mentioned Steve Bjork. He certainly did his homework tonight, huh? When he introduced the gentleman from the state police, I guess he couldn't find his first name. He called him Major Quinn. He has a first name, Steve, and it's Steve. Although he was a bit naive, thinking that Senator Tarr was still here. Senator Tarr always leaves before they collect for the tickets. And I enjoyed Charlie Walsh, who's here. I do remember that day, Charlie, when the discussion came around, why can't we find Whitey Ford? And I'm thinking, Whitey's with Yogi Berra someplace, And finally, Charlie went up there and suggested that it was Whitey Bulger that they were looking for. I do remember that. And our Everett detective, when he came up and talked about the golden oldies, was, of course, talking about Charlie Walsh. So, aren't you glad you waited? Chris Neville has been all of what so many people have talked about. A true community police officer and a true gentleman who has brought integrity to the position that perhaps no one else has surpassed. I'm certain that many have matched, but no one else can surpass the kind of commitment that Chris Neville has brought to the town of Wilmington over these many years. And I think that certainly is exemplified by the people that came this evening, by so many people who weren't able to come because the tickets sold so quickly. by so many people who were at the Good Guy Award 2 years ago, and by so many people who have benefited from Chris Neville's law enforcement acumen as well as his commitment to community. He has a wonderful family, and that is so important. Carol and the children and their spouses bring great joy to Chris and have also contributed in so many ways to the fabric of our wonderful community. It certainly is a privilege for me to be able to be here to recognize him and honor him. He was a patrolman when he began. I had the privilege of promoting him to sergeant and then to lieutenant. I must admit, I thought his name was pronounced Neville. But I still would have promoted him regardless of that fact. The town of Wilmington is going to miss him as a police officer, but fortunately we're not going to miss him as a part of the community. He really is going to be serving on the planning board. He accepted my offer to serve on that particular board. I'm not sure how much time he's going to be able to fit in for everything because he does so much, and you've heard all about that today. It's my privilege as town manager, as it has been for the past 22 years, to recognize retirees and to present them with a symbol of the town of Wilmington, which is, I think, a very beautiful crystal apple that is with an engraved plate that recognizes employees for their years of service. I've been able to give many, many of these out over the years, and this one is very special. It truly has great meaning for the entire citizenry of the town of Wilmington. And with that, I will try desperately not to drop it. I'm going to ask Chris to hold a microphone, but not to say anything. Okay. I'm going to break the seal. Look, he's good, huh? He has this right where it belongs. Now, if I were Chief Pagonis, and if I were Lusamaglia, I promise it's in here. At any time now you can go, ooh. Thought you would. This is the apple, Chris.
Thank you, Mike.
This is the plate, which is inscribed Christopher Neville for 34 years of devoted service to the town of Wilmington. And some of you may have heard this before, but Chris, it's also a picture of you and me. Congratulations. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mike. I tell you, I thought that was going to be a much bigger apple. All right, now perhaps a couple of the most important speakers, or at least a couple of people that really have deserved a chance to talk about Chris Neville for many, many years. Please welcome Carol Neville and Sean Neville.
I'll try to hold the microphone correctly, and I'll try to be brief. As my dad would say, it's getting late and some of us need to work tomorrow. Of course, he said that 3 hours ago when we were eating dinner. I'll also let you know that as you guys all talk about the emails that he sent out tonight, he did ask me about 2 hours ago how to forward emails on his new iPhone. He doesn't know how to do that yet, and I'm willing to withhold that information depending on how fast I can drive in eastern Massachusetts. I knew from an early age all the responsibilities that my dad had as a police officer, and one of the key responsibilities that he had growing up that I remember is that he used to fill up the Coke machine at the station. And I have all these memories of being in the front lobby of the old station, the very small old station, Him unlocking the front door and loading up the machine with an assortment of cans. It was one of the kind of the coolest things for a little kid to know that your dad's a police officer, but also that he's in charge of all the sodas that everybody gets to drink at. So that was pretty cool.
Who knew?
My dad also got me into the high school football games a lot. He would always, a lot of times work the detail there, so I'd be able to hang out at those games. He always had $1 or $2 for me for a hot dog or a Coke at halftime. There is one particular memory, and this is all a true story. He got back to the station, he checked in, and a call had come in that there was a suspect coming down Church Street and that there weren't any marked vehicles or nobody on duty at the time to get him. It could have been a robbery, it could have been hit and run, it could have been an expired inspection sticker for all that I know. But my dad jumped out of the station, jumped into the car, and sped off towards Church Street. My mom in the passenger seat was vocally reminding him that the car he was in was not his Crown Vic, but his Chevy station wagon. And the noises coming from the back were not the siren, but his 4 kids very excited that we were going on a chase. He took his foot off the pedal a bit, but only after learning that somebody else was coming up behind. I think it might have been Tommy Miller, who had also worked the detail that day, who was in his pickup truck with no kids in the car and was speeding down Church Street behind the suspect, so my dad pulled back just a little bit. Later on, he would take me on a couple ride-alongs at night, teaching 12-year-olds about the art of spotting an expired registration sticker. Learned the thrill of working the overnight shift. I only went on 1 or 2 of those. And there are so many memories growing up of being part of the police culture that while you just having him as a police officer and growing up that way, you know, the cookouts at Silver Lake that they had every year that we went to a few of, and all those TPF demonstrations that we went to just down the road here in Tewksbury. The flashbang demo was always the best. And I'm not sure whether he enjoyed better being a part of the line of police in those demonstrations or whether he enjoyed better dressing up as the bad guy in the building that got busted. I do know that he did enjoy dressing up as the bad guy. It was only a few years ago that I found him in his bedroom, putting on scrubby clothes and working on a slow gimp and asking me what he thought of it. There was a bust going down and he was going to be undercover in the area. Try as he might, and I told him the only role he was pulling off was police detective dressed up as an addict. I know he'll stay busy, as you've heard tonight, you know, take out his full-time job, and he still has plenty of activities to fill his schedule. He's a great dog sitter, and I plan on hiring him soon as a part-time babysitter when he welcomes in his first grandchild. But if you do see him back in uniform in the coming years, just nod and say hi and smile at him. And thank Walmart for giving those greeter jobs to older folks who have nothing better to do to occupy their time. That'll wrap it up for me. I'd now like to introduce someone who deserves a lot of credit tonight, and an early happy Mother's Day to my mom.
Since Chris has retired, life has changed a little for him. He now has to go purchase his own computer. He has to purchase his own cell phone, and he no longer has a company car. So that has been our life for probably the first week he retired, of going to find a computer, a phone, and get him acclimated to using those new technologies for him. Last night, while Chris and I were talking about his day and going over his honey-do list, Jo Marie, he told me he wasn't able to do any of those things that I left for him to do during the day. He had a busy day. He had gone to his detectives meeting, from which he's retired. He went to his Rotary meeting. He stopped by the police station, and then he had some emails to send out. I turned and looked at him and said, "Did you retire just so we would have a party?" So, thank you for coming to Chris's retirement party, but on Monday, he'll be going back to work. So, Chief, I hope you have an office available for him, because I'm tired of him using my kitchen table. But seriously, thank you for coming to honor Chris tonight. I don't think I've ever known anyone that has truly loved their job more than Chris. His ability to take a step back from any situation and look at it objectively has been a trait that I've long admired. It is my honor to introduce a wonderful father, a fantastic husband, my best friend, the love of my life, but he will always be known most as your Detective Lieutenant Chris Neville.
Thank you all very much. I know it's getting late. If there's any problems with the microphone, please somebody sing out. I want to make sure I cover this as best I can. I want to thank everybody tonight for coming. This means an awful lot to me. It's very overwhelming to see this room filled up the way it is. I want to take a special opportunity to thank Carol, the kids, for being here tonight and being so patient with me over the last 34 years or thereabouts. I want to also make special recognition. I know she's going to kick me when I turn around, but Susan O'Neill's done a great job tonight putting this whole program together. I want to take an opportunity also. I know it's been a hectic few weeks around the police station trying to get things done with me ducking in and out, but I want to thank publicly Mike Pagonis and Bobby Richter for being very patient with Susan and also for enabling me the opportunity to come and go with impunity, I guess, at this stage. So thank you for that. I know, yeah. I also want to thank Mike for giving me the opportunity. I know it's been mentioned several times tonight, but for giving me the opportunity to do what I do over the last 8 years or so. I know there were a lot of times he was frustrated that we weren't getting more things done, perhaps in Wilmington, but I do truly believe that there are no boundaries to this crime wave that we're always fighting. And I want to thank him because I know it was difficult at times, but he was certainly very generous allowing me to do what I do best. I want to thank past members and current members of the police department, and I want to acknowledge them publicly tonight. 3 people who are, actually several here that are not here tonight, but for various reasons. I had quite a few mentors in my early day. Mike touched on one early on. I had the very distinct pleasure of breaking in under Jay Palmer, Sergeant Jay Palmer, who was a great supervisor to me, and he really taught me the aggressiveness and how to be a good cop. I worked with guys like Mike McKenna, who most of you guys today on the job have no idea who Mike is, but Mike was a guy that was so detail-oriented, and he was a great detective and a role model for me in my early part of my career. And especially in terms of integrity and honesty, I want to acknowledge David McHugh Sr., who was a very good friend that we lost a couple of years ago. And I know his wife Cindy's here tonight. I think they're still here somewhere. Thank you for him. There have been others over my career that I want to again thank, who provided advice and opportunities for me. I broke in under originally Paul Lynch, but then Bobby Stewart took over a short time after. He gave me my first opportunity to branch out of patrol. He made me a juvenile officer and a detective early on in my career. I want to thank him for that opportunity. A guy who didn't make it tonight, even though I was hoping he would, Larry Redding was a mentor to me on the Special Operations Unit. And Larry gave me some advice very early on in my career, a couple of years in. I'll keep it private between us, but it's something I've never forgotten, and I hope it's something that has certainly been reflective of the way I treat everybody else on the job today, and I have for many years. Bobby Shelley for always reminding me to keep family first. That's the one thing Bobby was on, and certainly a role model for all young guys in Wilmington getting on the police department. Bobby always went out of his way, and when things got busy, he always said, just remember, family first. And I strongly encourage all of you young guys in the job, keep that in mind too. That's the most important thing. The job is very important, to always be honest and certainly filled with integrity, but always keep in mind that there's somebody else at home. And to Bernie Nally, I think Bernie's probably still here. Just for the dedication, you certainly were a good role model for me early in my career, actually almost my entire career. Bernie never went home either, so I think I probably picked up some of his traits, always working and doing a great job. And I would be remiss if I didn't, if Bobby Spencer's still here, gone. Well, I just want to acknowledge Bobby just for the fact that he gave me the opportunity to become Detective Lieutenant 8 years ago, and it's something that I would already strived for, and I certainly hope I met the medal on that. I want to thank the guys that helped make me look good for the last 8 years, and I'll publicly acknowledge them. For Tommy Miller, Pat King, Dave Shagru, John Bossy, Jimmy White, Brian Stickney, and Pat Nally. They always did whatever I asked them to do. I probably drove them crazy on more than one occasion because I was a taskmaster. I think any one of them would tell you that, but certainly they never said no. They always performed exactly to my expectation, and I'm very proud of the job that they did for me, and I'm very appreciative. I know the chief alluded to it, the town manager alluded to it as well. I'm very proud of the brothers and sister police officers that I have from Wilmington. I can honestly say that none of you have ever not stepped up anytime I've asked you for anything. You've always gone out of your way to do exactly what it is that I've asked. You know why I asked for it, and you've always held yourselves with the highest degree of professionalism, so thank you very much as well. To the town manager for giving me the opportunity. As Mike said, he made me originally a sergeant and then lieutenant. I thoroughly enjoy his opportunity to speak at every retirement party and dinner because it always ends a certain amount of levity to the evening. To all the town employees who are still here tonight, I know quite a few of you came out, whether it be public buildings, public works, the fire department, people at the town hall. So many of you, anytime I've needed any help around town, looking to get some shortcuts done, I appreciate the fact that you've always stepped up and really made the job a lot easier for me. So I want to do that, thank all of you as well. To my neighbors and friends, I think a few of them are still around, going back 50, 55 years. My old neighborhood on Royal Street, I see a couple of them down in the corner, Shirley and Erin and her husband. Thank you for coming, old neighbors from literally 50-something years ago. Just goes to show how old I am, I guess. From high school friends, people like my friends Larry and Judy over here who've been very generous over the years. Larry carried me through French class, even though I still failed it back in 1968. My many lifelong friends from Sears. I started working there in 1970 when I got out of high school. It's always nice to have you. Thank God there was no reenactment of the Cressettes, Mike. Would you agree? For those, the good guy did. It was a singing thing. You don't want to know about it. But I'm glad you didn't do it this year. Thank you. And to my Rotary brothers and sisters, the WCTV team over here, my fellow good guys over here, I want to thank all of you for all the support that you've given me for coming tonight. I hope you had as good a time as I have. And just before we finish up, I want to thank also my mentors on this job. Now, not just the Wilmington Police job, but as all of you have heard tonight, I have a certain way of doing things. I tend to be kind of fanatical, but I've learned from some very good people over the years, not necessarily just Wilmington. And I want to publicly acknowledge tonight, because I think most of them are still here, retired Detective Lieutenant Jimmy Pierce from Winchester, retired Detective Lieutenant Kevin Patterson from Reading, retired Deputy Police Chief, the King of the Gypsies, Rolly Anderson from Weston, and retired Chief of Police from Marblehead, Jimmy Carney. All these guys have really shown me over the years how to be a detective, how to be thorough, how to be communicative, to try to get everybody on the same page. They're the ones that showed me how to do it, and I certainly hope that, I know just by all the types of work that you guys have done over the years, the last 8 years, you're the ones that are making this whole email group successful. You're the ones that are solving the crimes. It's not me. I'm just a conduit sending information out. So I want to thank all of you especially for all the work that you do.
You're making all of us look good, and you're making the Commonwealth a much safer place to live. So thank you for all of you for coming tonight. It's really important.